We know what we're looking for. We know what the enablers of these and beneficiaries of these new technologies are going to look like. We know what they're going to say. And so it makes our investment process and stock selection much easier, less complicated than you'd find in other organizations.
On Season 3 of The Switch, we're really excited to co-host with the founder, CEO, and Chief Investment Officer of ARK Invest, Cathie Wood. We're going to discuss the case for disruptive innovation from a few different perspectives. So, let's continue the conversation with how to identify transformative technologies. So, Cathie, innovation is tricky. Think about all those people that started something out of their garage like Steve Jobs, but also at the same time, is there a secret to figuring out what's really innovative and what's a fad?
Well, the way we do it, I'm sure there are other ways, but the way that we do it is try to understand, is this an innovation platform? And what an innovation platform means to us is three things. One, it rides down a learning curve. And when I say down, I mean costs are falling. So there's a learning curve associated with new technologies. That's the first. The second is if they're going to be massive, they're probably going to reach more than one sector, and preferably all sectors in the economy. And then the third is they are launching pads for more innovation. So just to give you an example, DNA sequencing costs, for every cumulative doubling in the number of whole human genome sequence, costs are dropping 40%. That's a phenomenal deflationary force in the economy. Is it cutting across sectors? Yes, many people think about DNA sequencing only in terms of human beings, but agriculture of all kinds, including animals and plants, crops of all kinds, are going to benefit from DNA sequencing and the gene editing that we can do to them. And then, is this a launching pad for more innovation? Well, DNA sequencing itself was a launching pad. We couldn't have CRISPR gene editing without DNA sequencing. So that's what we look for, is those three characteristics. And so it's a tall order to check all of those.
Because certainly Wall Street gets excited about all sorts of stuff that seems innovative at the time. In a recent piece you guys published, you talked about Brunswick and bowling. Can you give us that example? Because, it seems like there's so much hype around so many things. Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what's really not.
Well, it's interesting. Brunswick Bowling, so the bowling alley and the pins and the automation associated with that was supposed to, investors got very excited about it. And in our world, that wouldn't even get to step one, but they got very excited because it was the new automation. It would have applications in many other places, but there was very little money made ultimately off of that. There was just too much capital chasing too few opportunities. And at the end of the day, the returns were very, very disappointing.
Is that an issue of the technology being interesting, right? Automation, obviously, that's super important and super interesting. But
yes.
But in that case, it's just a user of it, not necessarily a platform builder of it. Is
Correct.
that really the issue?
It's an application, one application. The broader point there is automation. And when the Brunswick story happened, we weren't ready for the kinds of automation that we are seeing now. Automation is being turbocharged by artificial intelligence and supercomputing power. there was nothing like that back then. And so if we had put it through our screen, it wouldn't have gotten to step past. It would have gotten into the cost decline somewhat, but it was such a specific application. It would take a very long time to see a number of cumulative doublings in the number of bowling pin alleys produced. It just wasn't going to. It just wasn't. We would not have. We probably wouldn't have passed step one.
Cathie, you talk about your screen. Getting into it, what specific criteria do you use when you see a company or an idea that's worth investing in? And is there ever a period where a company's too small or maybe too big where you just take a pass?
No, well, one of the most interesting developments in the traditional asset management world was the rise, as you know, of benchmarks, right? And so many investors will not look at a stock if it's not in their benchmark, or they won't look at a stock if it is less than, let's say, $5 billion in market cap. We have no such restrictions. We look at everything. We want to learn, if nothing else, by meeting a small cap company, we might learn something that will inform other decisions. So we will look at everything in our universe, but the sifting process, as I just described, is quite rigorous, right? And so we know what we're looking for. I think that's the beauty of what we're doing. We don't have to look at everything. We know what we're looking for. We know what the enablers of these and beneficiaries of these new technologies are going to look like. We know what they're going to say. And so it makes our investment process and stock selection much easier, less complicated than you'd find in other organizations.
You made the comment about cost control or bringing costs down as being a really critical part of looking for companies that you think are going to be great targets for investors. Is it always about doing something new, or can that cost control really be the whole story? Are there pockets of the market where cost control and efficiency is in fact the innovation?
We're focused on unit growth at the end of the day. And the reason costs coming down is so important is prices follow costs. And when prices follow costs, and this is an opportunity that can span sectors, more and more sectors can participate. That's why some of these platforms scale to trillions and trillions of dollars. So no, cost declines alone are part of what the traditional asset management world is looking for as they try and understand why earnings will grow at a double-digit rate. We are not interested in companies which have revenue growth in the single-digit range. Our average revenue growth is, I'm going to say it's about 25%, give or take. 25% at a compound annual rate. Many investors look for cost declines, partly enabled by technology, but they're focused on companies where the top line growth is not that strong. So there's no real innovation taking place and no real opportunities to scale exponentially. And when we say scale exponentially, we really are thinking about revenues, and ultimately profits will follow.
Cathie, this has been excellent. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Switch.